What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with another Destiny 2 Revenant video. And in this one we're going to speak about some upcoming rewards for this episode. And there are actually a couple of exotic weapons that we have some details about. The first is Icebreaker, but there are also a few threads hinting at another exotic weapon that we'll get access to at some point in the season. Some of that actually comes via Bungie's press kit, which is certainly interesting, so we'll talk about all of that. But there are also going to be a handful of armor sets introduced this season. Some of them are flashback sets, but additionally there'll be a Strand and Stasis themed armor set, but we'll also touch on upcoming episode weapons, so we can see some of the ones that are going to drop in upcoming acts. But additionally, there are event weapons as well, so a handful of interesting things to touch on in the video today. As always, I hope you guys enjoy this one, and if you do, a rating below very much helps us on the channel. But without further delay, let's get into it. And so first up, we'll speak about the dungeon exotic, which we know is Icebreaker. Of course, a solar energy sniper rifle, and it's been reworked since Destiny 1. So the exotic perk is no backpack, and final blows or assists with any other weapon or ability have a chance to create ammo for Icebreaker, and defeating powerful combatants will create multiple rounds. So instead of automatically regenerating ammo, it now requires some kills to be made in order to regen, which in itself is a bit different. There is also the Icebreaker trait though, and defeating a target with the weapon causes them to explode. Precision final blows or shattering a frozen target instead triggers an ignition. And so it's interesting that the weapon interacts with both stasis and solar. And via Bungie leaks on Twitter, we can see the model for Icebreaker, the bottom one, near enough identical to the Destiny 1 variant, and then the top one is one of the ornaments for it. And this ornament will actually show up in the Eververse store for Bright Dust at some point in the season. We don't know exactly when that will be. It could be in January or February of this year before it actually shows up for Bright Dust. But if you happen to pick Icebreaker up later in the week, just keep in mind the ornament will be available for Bright Dust. As of course, once we get the exotic, Bungie will be offering us the silver purchase for that ornament, but it isn't necessary if you are willing to wait. So that's the first part, and of course we'll discover more about the dungeon at the weekend. Next up though, let's speak about the exotic mission for episode Revenant. It's safe to say that we don't know a tremendous amount about it. We also don't know the specific timing of when the exotic mission will drop, so on the episode page, or in terms of a roadmap, there isn't a breakdown of when the different activities will actually become available. But we know that the exotic mission is called Kel's Fall, and we can see this via the tonic screen as one of the crafting materials or reagents will actually be obtained from the exotic mission. Very interestingly though, in Bungie's press kit for Revenant, spoiler alert, but we can see this weapon. This of course isn't one of the legendary weapons we currently know about. It looks like an exotic weapon. It isn't visible in the database in any way, with the exception of a few perks. But it's curious because this is actually listed, or the file name for this weapon refers to Act 1 weapons for Revenant. So I guess there's a small possibility that the exotic mission will happen during Act 1, or it's just an error on Bungie's part. Typically, they wouldn't even upload a weapon like this into the press kit when it is otherwise hidden and classified in the database. So I'm not sure if they made a mistake here, but they've essentially revealed this weapon themselves via that press kit. And assuming that this is the exotic mission weapon, which there seems to be a strong indication of that, we can actually see some exotic intrinsic perks in the database, and there are 3 different variants of this perk, as we normally see with a craftable exotic. So chances are the exotic mission will have a craftable weapon once again, and the intrinsic bonus here is Night Sworn Sight, and dealing final blows to targets grants Night Sworn Sight, and during that time, final blows grant True Sight, and ammo slowly reloads from reserves, but on top of that, sub-munitions will weaken targets. Obviously, there will be a secondary trait that pairs with this. I'm not currently aware of what that bonus is, but again, with there being 4 different variants of this bonus, it indicates a craftable exotic, and presumably those are linked to the weapon that we see in the image via the press kit. So on top of the Season Pass exotic weapon, that's 2 other exotics via Icebreaker and the Nightsworn exotic that we've just mentioned. So at least a couple of other things to drop during this episode. Let us know your thoughts down below. I very much love the visual theme of that weapon. It looks really cool. I also checked through exotic ornaments just to make sure that this wasn't an ornament for an existing weapon or something like that. Again, there's no indication of that being the case. So there we have our first glimpse of an upcoming exotic. Other quick things to mention, there is going to be a seasonal flashback for Revenant for Season of the Hunt. So Season of the Hunt armor ornaments will become available. Normally, these are sold for silver in the Eververse store, but we don't know precisely when they'll show up. There are other armor sets as well that we're going to get access to. The first is a series of Strand-themed armor sets, and these were shared by Bungie leaks. They are actually visible in the database. So for the Warlock, there's the Jade Filament. Apparently these will be releasing in Revenant Act 3. And there's a fairly plain base armor, but they've got the sort of strand-coloured glows, literal strands wrapped around the armor pieces, so that's pretty cool. Additionally, you can see bits of the Titan set right here, or the individual pieces at least, and there'll also be the Hunter variant, so let us know if those look interesting. Otherwise, it would appear we're also getting a stasis-themed set, which according to Bungie leaks will drop during Act 3. However, we can't preview what those look like just yet, but the listings for the items are in the database nonetheless. So a bunch of armor sets and cosmetic items. Of course, there's also Festival of the Lost and the Dawning during this episode, and we can see new weapons for both of those, which we'll touch on in a moment. But firstly, I wanted to talk about upcoming Revenant weapons. Right now, there's a handful that we can get access to, but from what I can see in the database, it would appear that there are 3 additional Revenant-themed legendary weapons, which will be for future acts. So the first one is Noxious Vetiver, and this is an ARC precision frame SMG. The first trait column is able to roll Loose Change, as well as To the Pain, Thresh, Unrelenting, Attrition Orbs, Pugilist, and then there's Heating Up. But the second slot can get Jolting Feedback, and dealing repeated damage with this weapon inflicts Jolt, but while Amplified Jolt is applied faster, so looks like a pretty good bonus potentially. There is also Target Lock, Frenzy, Redirection, Vorpal Weapon, Desperate Measures, and Rampage, and once again all of these weapons will have the Dark Ether Reaper origin trait. The next one though is Scavenger's Fate, and this is a Void precision frame shotgun. The first trait slot can get Lone Wolf, which slightly improves aim assist, ADS, and airborne effectiveness. Additionally though, there's Feeding Frenzy, Repulsor Brace, Discord, Perpetual Motion, Slide Shot, and Dual Loader in the first trait slot. Then the second slot can get Destabilizing Rounds, as well as Closing Time, which improves range, accuracy, and handling as the mag gets lower. Then there's Desperate Measures, Harmony, Vorpal Weapon, Surrounded, and Frenzy. The final episode weapon, which is currently unreleased though, is the Heretic's Fervor. This is an aggressive frame stasis rocket launcher, and the first trait slot can get Tracking Module as well as Field Prep, Autoloading Holster, then it can get Lone Wolf, as well as Rhyme Stealer, where destroying a stasis crystal or defeating a frozen target with the weapon grants Frost Armor. Plus there is Quick Draw and Slide Shot. Then the second trait slot can get Chill Clip, Vorpal Weapon, Frenzy, Bipod, but it can also roll Quick Draw, Explosive Light, and Harmony. So a quick preview right there of upcoming weapons for the episode. Separately though, there are some event weapons. The first one is for Festival of the Lost, which I believe is going to be dropping towards the end of October, and this is the Arcane Embrace, which is an arc heavy burst shotgun. So an interesting archetype right there. It fires a hard-hitting 2-round burst and slightly reduces flinching from incoming fire while aiming. The first trait slot is able to get Air Trigger, 4th times the Charm, Grave Robber, Lone Wolf, Slide Shot, Dual Loader, and Threat Detector. Then the second slot can get Closing Time, Desperado, Precision Instrument, Surrounded, but it can also roll Tap the Trigger, Swashbuckler, and Volt Shot. Then of course it has the Search Party origin trait, but additionally, another one that we can't see the actual model for, and you'll notice there's the 1000 Voices as the placeholder icon there, the pink thumbnail, but it's Mistral Lift, and this is a Void Adaptive Burst linear fusion rifle for the Dawnits. So first trait slot can get Withering Gaze, and aiming this weapon for a short period of time without firing grants the ability to weaken the next target. The timer resets after firing or when you stop aiming down sights. That's an interesting one. Plus you can get Closing Time, Clown Cartridge, Envious Assassin, as well as Keep Away, Moving Target, and Reconstruction. Then the second slot can roll Bait and Switch, High Ground, Firing Line, as well as Precision Instrument, Frenzy, High Impact Reserves, and Vorpal Weapon. So again, a pretty interesting one right there. There'll be some nice perk combinations, and that one will drop with the Dawning at some point in December, probably in the second half of December. So by then we will of course be in Act 2, where we know that we're getting the return of Prison of Elders, which is now referred to as Tomb of Elders. So it's possible there'll be other hidden rewards linked specifically to that activity, as we will get new key activities for each of the acts. And it seems like there are probably more weapon and armor rewards this episode than what we had back in Echoes. So we'll see how it pans out over the course of the episode, but there we go, a quick preview of a bunch of rewards that we're going to be getting access to in the next few weeks. Of course, eventually we'll be able to go into more detail about that upcoming exotic weapon, but give us your initial impressions, at least from the basic description for the bonus and the image preview for it. If you've enjoyed the video, a rating really helps us out as well, and get subscribed if you want to see more Destiny content. But otherwise, cheers for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.